Well, welcome to this week's webinar from Apogo in association with MyTutor. I'm Nicola Anderson from MyTutor, and I'm delighted to be joined by Jo Lane today to discuss summer learning loss, the facts, and how to prevent it.
Good evening.
So, Jo Lane, I'm going for my Desert Island Disc Kirsty Young moment here. Do tell me a little bit about you.
Right, okay. Well, I'm currently a teacher, but I haven't always been in education. I've worked in the real world, worked at the Financial Times for many years, and then started teaching in FE colleges with business and enterprise. And now I work at Windsor Boys School, where I teach business, and I'm responsible for careers education. And within that, I look at enterprise, employability, informing pupils of the wide range of pathways that are available to them now, because they're changing so much. And it's an exciting time in this kind of landscape, but equally, we have to make sure that they are aware of it and equipped to deal with sort of the next steps after school. And that's why we're talking today about sort of maximising their time at school, and that does include summer holidays. So we're going to sort of bring that into the mix this evening.
So a subject that's close to your heart and that you're very passionate about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so Nicola, you're from MyTutor. Do you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm from Bristol University. So long ago, in my first year, I didn't even have an email address, which is shocking to admit. I've worked in business and marketing for 20 years across a wide range of sectors, and most recently moved into education, an area that I'm really passionate about, and joined MyTutor. For those of you that don't know, MyTutor is the UK's leading online tuition provider. We work with over 350 schools and 10,000 parents, providing one-to-one personalised GCSE and A-level tuition. And our results show that we can improve on average by a grade, as well as increasing those pupils' confidence.
Excellent.
So let's talk about tonight's session. We're going to be focusing on four main areas. First of all, we'll be talking about summer learning loss, the summer slide, and the facts about this. We'll then move on to what this means for the summer term and how to ensure Key Stage 3 pupils aren't forgotten. Then on to summer learning over the summer holidays and how to really sell this in to pupils and parents. And then last but definitely not least, some resources and some tips on providing tools to minimise that summer learning loss. So let's start with summer learning loss, the facts. Jo, what is summer learning loss? What does it mean?
Well, it's really quite interesting actually, because it's given a name to the facts basically that when pupils leave school on that lovely day in July and they chuck their bags down, they throw away their old shoes that have got holes in them and kind of forget about school for the next 6 weeks, and they're just thinking about a really long hot summer, which is what you want them to do. And as teachers, I know that we do exactly the same thing too. So it's natural, we all want to have that really lovely break. But the downside of that is that there's an impact of this break, and that's what we call the summer learning loss. And it's basically what it says on the tin, really. Whilst everyone is kind of having that downtime, there's a real, the statistics speak for themselves basically, that what happens is there's a loss of learning. The brain just kind of shuts down over that time, and the stats speak for themselves in the fact that 2.6 months of math skills can be lost over the summer, and 2 months of reading skills. But also quite interestingly is that only 48% of parents have actually heard of the summer learning loss. And this surprised me, but then I sort of put myself in with take away my teacher hat and put my mum hat on. And actually, I think as a parent, we kind of realised that, yes, getting the kids back into that September learning can be a bit of a challenge. So we all realise that. but we don't realise that what's actually happening over the summer and the impact that that can have.
I mean, that's huge, isn't it? The summer holidays are 6 weeks, yet you can actually lose up to 2.5 months of math skills.
Yeah, and if you think about how many lessons that is across your year, how many lessons you've planned, it's scary.
Does it impact some students more than others, some subjects more than others?
I think, yes, it does. The sort of statistics show that maths and English are the key areas where you're going to lose those skills. But obviously that then has a knock-on effect on other subjects as well. So, and it's just about the engagement of the brain and the retaining of information. And as we all know, like the curriculum now is so heavy with content and facts. So it's not a surprise really that there is summer learning loss, but the worry is that given these new curriculums, particularly at GCSE, if we're losing it at Key Stage 3, there's a real danger that when you're entering into Key Stage 4, the impact could actually be much greater.
And that's when you're getting into the exams.
Yes, absolutely.
So it had a real negative impact, both for the teachers who are finding that they're having to reteach certain areas, but also for your progress towards those exams and the school's results overall.
Yes, exactly. And the other thing is that, whilst the stat there says like 48% of parents have heard of the summer learning loss, lower income families, that actually drops to 38%. And quite often, as we'll be aware in education, lower income learners can often, suffer with their grades anyway. So this is really not helping those.
So it's double impact.
Yeah, it is double impact.
So they could already be struggling.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be hit even more severely by that summer learning loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you talk about parents, 48% of parents have heard of it, only 38% of those kids most at risk.
Yeah.
And what about teachers and schools? Is it something that teachers are aware of, that schools are focusing on during the summer term?
Well, personally, I think we are all aware of it within education, but I'm unaware of any formal strategies that are in place across the majority of secondary schools to actually deal with it. I know sort of colleagues who might set a summer learning project, but it's very generic. It probably is kind of, whether it's marked when it's handed back in after the summer holiday would be questionable. It's kind of like a process that sending out a project is something that they can do, but it's not taken that seriously, and it's certainly not kind of like have any sort of like individual focus, so the benefit can be quite limited.
Right, so there's no real strategy behind this.
No, I don't think there is.
At a school level, at a teaching level.
Yeah, and that's why we've put the poll out there tonight, really. Be really interested to hear from you guys out there about, what's your knowledge in the schools that you work in? Are there any strategies in place? Because our research shows that it's there's an awareness amongst educators, but there's no actual plans to deal with it.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when we were doing some research around the subject, there was a lot of data and reports from the US, who seemed to be more focused on this. And one of the numbers they came up with, which I thought was terrifying, was that it can cost a school up to $18,000 per pupil most at risk from summer learning loss.
Yeah,
which is a huge amount.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look online, there are a number of sort of talks about what they do in the US and their access to summer schools, and I think in the UK our summer schools very much are viewed as helping parents who are working, and therefore just keeping kids active physically, which clearly is a great and a huge benefit. But I don't know of summer schools which actually provide any educational purpose throughout the summer. So there's definitely a missing link there in the UK, definitely.
And when do teachers actually need to start focusing on this? I mean, we're talking about the summer holidays here, but is this something that they need to start looking into before then?
Yes, we're moving on now to like looking at the summer term. So it's great, we are in the summer term, and there's always like a little light at the end of the tunnel. But what you'll find in secondary schools at the moment is that the key focus amongst many teachers and discussions amongst in the classroom and in the staff room will be very much focusing on GCSE exams.
Of course, and
yeah,
that's where school is focused. It's about getting those results. But what does that mean for those in Key Stage 3?
Well, I think what that means is that if a teacher, and we totally understand the pressures that all teachers are under with regards to preparation and planning and assessment, but if they're the GCSE is 2-3 weeks away, then at the moment their focus is going to be on that. So there's an element that the Key Stage 3 pupils, there's a risk possibly that they're kind of cruising rather than
it's the summer term.
Yeah,
it's a time to just relax into it a little bit more.
Yeah, possibly, and that's not to say that the learning isn't taking place, but teachers are only human, and there is a limit on prioritising, and at the moment their priority will be GCSEs. But the good thing about that, if you sort of turn it around a little bit, maybe there's a couple of weeks where when you enter the summer term where the focus is swapped to, or is particularly on GCSE, then the good thing is that then the GCSE exams then do kick in, and then the revision sessions stop and the extra work stops, and then the exams finish. And so then you have 4, 5, well, probably nearly 6 weeks this year, because we all break up quite late. So there's your window really, with regards to saying, right, yes, we're really glad that we've got our year 11s and they've moved on, and you can kind of like breathe a sigh of relief.
And how do you keep those Key Stage 3 pupils engaged? I mean, there's talk about more formal assessments. What's your view on that?
Well, with regards to assessment, and assessments take place every throughout the academic year, and there will be end of year assessments taking place in every subject. So that's where you can be preparing your pupils in Key Stage 3. And interestingly enough, and we've put this into the poll, because the content of the GCSE curriculum has got so heavy now, many schools are being forced to start teaching the curriculum in year 9.
Right.
So that changes like your sort of like the end of Key Stage 3. And also what we're finding is, and certainly in my school this year, we are opting to implement formal exams for year 9 in the core subjects. So preparing them to become familiar with the exam environment. So they'll go to the main hall, they'll have an exam number, they'll start that process.
So it feels like you're actually going into a proper moderated exam.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of getting them ready to enter into Key Stage 4. Whether, I don't know if anyone out there, if you've got any views on this, is this a good thing? Should we be putting our year 9s into this kind of environment this early on? I'd be really grateful to hear from you with regards to that. We've put on here identifying pupils at risk of falling behind. Clearly the summer term is a great time for doing this. So each pupil will have sat an assessment, whether it's formal or informal. So you've got that really nice like chunk of data to help you analyse where your worries might be, which pupils are more at risk, and what you don't want to do is for that risk to increase over the summer.
And will teachers already have a pretty strong idea going into the summer term about which pupils are most at risk of falling behind?
Yeah, I think that's the question about assessment and are pupils assessed too much is up for debate. But the positive side of that is that teachers are able to know their pupils, and therefore it is that the tracking does provide, you know, red, amber, green, you know which pupils in your class are on track, which ones are kind of maybe cruising, and which ones are, you know, they're on red and they're, you know, they're not on track. And this is all about progress now. It's the focus has moved away from like actual having to reach a certain target grade.
Right.
It's based on individual progress, levels of progress. So, and that's what you need to be looking at, and making sure that that progress, hopefully, that's been made across the year doesn't then drop out over the summer.
Okay.
One way of doing that and analysing like where your pupils are, and a great time to do that obviously is your end of year reports. And we're going to look at how this can help with regards to like a resource going forward. And because it's at that point we talk about assessment that we get this idea of like which pupils are where. But yeah, we're going to come back to that shortly.
Yeah. I mean, the real challenge is the summer holiday.
Yeah.
And obviously the teachers desperately need a break. And what we don't want is to be creating a scenario where the teachers are actually having to be working and monitoring during that summer holiday.
No, definitely not.
What do they need to do in the run up to that summer holiday to really try and mitigate this learning loss over that period?
Well, the benefit, I think what we have to do is, you're absolutely right, we don't want to lump any more responsibility onto teachers, but what we do need to do is sell in the benefits of summer learning. And there's a really good fact which you can see there, which is this: just 2 hours a week can mitigate summer learning loss. And I think that's a fact that's not widely known.
No.
So the scary facts at the beginning about how many hours are lost over how many months of learning are lost can be counteracted with this really positive fact.
So 2.6 months of maths learning could be lost, or you can do 12 hours over the entire summer holidays and prevent that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds a sensible solution to me.
It does. But clearly that could still be quite off-putting. It could be off-putting for pupils, it could be off-putting for parents, and it could be off-putting for teachers. So communication at this point is key. So we're already aware that, you know, over half of parents are completely oblivious to the fact that what summer learning loss is. So there's a real need within each school environment just to raise awareness.
Right.
This is summer learning loss. These are the facts. These are the scary facts, but hey, this is a positive. So what you're doing is like you are clearly like identifying that there's a need to address this. And then what you can do is sell the benefit, and you can do that to pupils, you can do that with parents and to teachers. And clearly the teachers, we have to get on board with this.
Yeah, so actually that's where you need to start, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you as a class teacher, a department head, a year head, this is something that you want to be able to collaborate on it. And you may even need to be educating upwards. It may be that it's actually to the leadership team.
Yeah.
What's the best way about going about this? Because obviously schools are juggling so many things. How do you make summer learning loss something that actually gets on the agenda?
I think if you a really good way of doing it would be like within your department, within your faculty, and making it kind of not like one person's responsibility.
Right, so it's not all the pressure just on one teacher.
Absolutely. And whether you break it down into year groups, so you could look at year 7, year 8, year 9, and collectively you come up with solutions using, you know, it's like putting all your heads together. Because what you find in education and in teaching, and you know, many schools do this, it's like sharing best practice. And it's really lovely when sometimes you might walk into someone's classroom and go, oh that's good, oh I'll do that. The problem is so very often that we're all just kind of like stuck in our own classroom doing our own thing, and you're kind of like unaware of what everyone else is doing. So if we can use this as a collaboration a team of teachers. This kind of like putting some resources together does not need to be scary. And that's what I think the benefits are. You don't want to, as a teacher, to have worked so hard across the year and know that all that great content, you know, when you ask someone a question and then you point, you know, you choose someone to answer it and they're like, they've nailed it, they've answered it, and you're like, yes, you were listening, lovely. I mean, it's just like a really lovely feeling, and we all know that feeling. But then how soul destroying that 6 weeks later you ask that same question and you just get this like blank expression, because basically their heads, you know, their brains have switched off. And so let's not have that. Let's not have that kind of like blank expression. Let's come up with a way just to keep that little bit of knowledge in over the summer. And so it benefits teachers. I think we need to communicate with parents. And about
how do you go about doing that
with parents?
Yeah,
I mean, communicating with parents has become a lot easier with regards to like online learning environments, with sort of like instant messaging. So there are a number of ways, whether it's through a department, whether it's through newsletter home, whether it's a tweet. You know, it's not tricky now to communicate with parents, but you just have to tell them. I think that's the problem at the moment.
Less
parents,
than half know about it. It feels like the best place to start is before going into action. It's just like, this is a challenge that you all need to be aware of, and this is how easy it is to fix.
And I think it's like that's really positive then, because it's highlighting a problem, but it's not just saying it's a problem, and it's like, and this is what we're going to do about it. This is how we are going to do extra to help your pupils. And the majority of parents are not going to find that as a negative. They're going to see that as a really positive thing. So then what you need to do, if you've got the parents on board, then you need to get the pupils on board. Right. And again, that might be the challenge.
And with the parents, only 38% of parents from disadvantaged backgrounds are actually aware of this. And also they tend to be the least engaged. So what do you do if you're really struggling to engage some of your parents?
What you can do with regards to that is to really kind of connect with the individual pupil, and you can do that possibly through like we have some kind of like mentoring schemes where you kind of like, maybe it's like you one way I really like is to say to these kind of like maybe like they're the pupil premium pupils or the lower achieving pupils, like everyone will have like a favorite teacher. And I really love the thought of like saying, like, you don't have to speak to someone like that we're saying that you've got to speak to. Let us identify who your favourite teacher is, because everyone does have a favourite teacher.
Who's your role model? Who's your mentor? Absolutely, I can remember mine.
And I think we all do that, and we all get that really nice, like, warm feeling. So if ever you're going to try and get someone engaged in doing a little bit more or going the extra mile, then if you can get that person to share that message with the pupil, say, listen, over the summer holidays, this is really going to help you. The reason it's really going to help you is because when you get back in the autumn term, you're not going to spend the next month or 6 weeks trying to catch up on your learning from last year, from the last academic year. If you can just do this, then this is how it's going to help you. This is how you're with regards to your confidence. And so if you get the right person or the right individual selling this to the pupil, then you're far more likely to get that engagement.
And do you think it would be different benefits you're selling into the pupil? I mean, for the parents it's all about exam results, but for some kids they're just not interested. Are there other benefits that will really resonate with them that seem less about you've just got to get good grades?
I mean, in my role as careers, I'm a massive advocate of selling the bigger picture. So what the conversation can be is like, while you're here now, where do you want to be? And whether that's just like, what college do you want to go to? What job do you want to get? I talk to them about what car do you want to drive? Where do you want to live? Where do you want to go on holiday? Start showing them about the future.
So what's their sweet spot?
Yeah, definitely. And like, you can do that. But you can get there, and so even if you've got to have your dream, and then you've got to work out how you're going to get there, and by doing this is going to help you achieve. And it's not about necessarily saying you need to get a level 4. You know, I don't think
it's much more aspirational.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just about like this is what will help you have choices when you reach those certain stages, whether it's when you get to year 9 and you're choosing your options. You know, if you've put that extra work into some subjects, if you're doing well in the subject, then you're more confident to choose it as an option subject. So it comes right down to like confidence, loving the subject, enjoying it. That all contributes to success. And then you can take that through into Key Stage 4, and then looking ahead into like what you're going to do after year 11. Yeah, just kind of like sharing a bit of a vision as to why this would make sense.
And within that parent and pupil community, do you find that some parents and pupils are more influential than others? And is it important to get their support and buy-in?
Yeah, I think that is true. And I mean, I work in a boys' school, so it's quite a competitive environment, and people are very competitive amongst their peers. So we do find that if you can engage with some of the kind of maybe like the more vocal, the more influential, it can definitely have like a knock-on effect. But at the same time, you've got to be really careful not to alienate those that aren't part of like a certain kind of clique or gang. You know, this is for everybody.
Okay. And talking about everybody, what are some of the resources that teachers can use and can share with pupils and parents that mean that they don't have to actually get involved over the summer holidays, but also that are affordable for everyone? Because in the past, when I've seen resources like this, it's very much like take the kids to these museums and these outings, and obviously that all costs money. So what is there available to teachers that they can put together that will create a great summer learning plan and reduce this loss?
Well, if we look here, and please don't shoot me down now if you're reading this, listening to this.
Controversial word, spare time. I didn't think teachers had any spare time at all.
Clearly, you know, there isn't a lot of spare time in a teacher's day, weekend. We all know that. However, it's about making the most maybe of some gained time. And gain time does come in the summer term. So we've spoken about when your year 11s have gone, and suddenly you might have 5 less lessons across the fortnight, across for a number of weeks then. So it's like, and I know it's instinct for everyone to think, right, that's my time, I'm just gonna like, you know, just take the pressure off a bit. And absolutely, and I'm not saying that gained time shouldn't be valued, but it's just about saying, how can I make good use of that gain time if I've got it, and once I've written the reports, once certain tasks have been delivered, everyone will have a bit of gain time in the summer term, and within sort of like the secondary sector, within Key Stage 3. So it's like saying, let's do something with that time.
And I think what's interesting as well is what you talked about earlier, which is about collaboration with your department and other teachers. So this isn't about you creating all of this on your own. This is something that can be shared across a number of resources. And the great thing as well is, once you've done it once, actually next year, it's just about updating. It's not something that you have to create from scratch every year, is it?
No, and it's about, you know, take one department meeting. Just say you've got, right, okay, we've got a department meeting at the end of June. Let's make the focus a summer learning challenge. And everyone is prepped to come to this meeting with something that they feel will add value to their pupils across the summer, which might be a 15 or 20-minute task. Now, you may not be reinventing the wheel. You may just like pull in some of your resources from across the year. You may, because everyone's different, you might to think that, oh, I've got an opportunity here, I just feel like being a little bit creative, and you might put like a summer focus on it. So how can I link this to the summer and what they might be doing? But you know, there's no kind of like strict rules here.
So it could actually be something that you just find online. I mean, we talk about resource. what sort of things could this resource be?
Well, what's really what's so useful now is that learning takes on so many sort of different guises now. And an interesting fact I came across the other day is like so many young people are turning to YouTube for learning.
Right.
And one of the ideas that I had that we're going to try out this year at school is to think about. I mean, every day teachers stand up in front of a classroom with a whiteboard and deliver a lesson. So how about capturing that on a video? How about capturing like a 15-minute summer learning challenge activity? But rather than think, oh my goodness, how am I going to record that? Then what you could do is, for example, you've got year 9 students going into year 10 who are going to choose media, so they're going to choose a new subject. Who's to say that you can't go, right, okay, get your phones out, let's record this, let's work together, so you're engaging with your pupils.
So they're actually helping create this resource.
Yeah, actually get them involved, create the resource. You could have your own summer learning video channel, school. Click on the history ones. Click on the business videos.
A few short videos from each of the teaching staff, and that will keep them occupied. That's going to be at least 12 hours worth of learning over the summer.
Yeah, and the stats show that kids love this. They love, and actually, if it's something different. I mean, obviously, they're going to put some comments in there, so you have to sort of prepare yourself for the fact that there might be a little bit of Mickey taking going on. But like, it's actually like a really a modern way of saying, actually, we get you. We know that you don't necessarily want to be doing worksheets and textbooks in the summer.
Yeah.
So actually what we're saying to you is we recognise that this actually is your preferred way of learning. So here you go.
And they've had a part in creating it, which always makes it more fun. So video content is one way. What are some other resources that could be used?
So every school will have their own virtual learning environment. So if you want to go down the kind of the more traditional route, then little activities, little quizzes that can be uploaded, and they can be like automatically marked. So because it's really, really important to state here that we are not saying that teachers should be checking anything, marking anything, doing anything above and beyond in their summer holiday. This is not necessary. The message from today is to say that a little bit of planning and collaborating in the summer term, setting something, activities that pupils can engage with over the summer will allow them to come back and they're being minimised.
And it's encouraging self-learning, which is so important
definitely.
When you get into the GCSEs and you've got all that revision time.
Yeah.
So it's actually great preparation for that as well.
Yeah.
And if you make it fun, it doesn't feel like work, does it?
No, exactly. And you could, I mean, you could be like really creative with it, and you could be a bit surprising. So, who's to say that you don't kind of get a blow up palm tree and get the teacher to put some sunglasses on and a hat, and just like be a little bit mad maybe, and a bit different,
and sunshine to it.
But
you've mentioned a couple of other ideas on the slide, the summer learning challenge.
We know that just like literally a couple of hours a week can make a huge difference, but then it's just a bit like, well, how do you remind them? Because we're all guilty of the fact that we've switched off. You could introduce like a Twitter summer learning challenge Twitter account. Just say to pupils and parents, follow us over the summer. We'll send you a little alert. Schools can set alerts to roll out across the summer. Here's the link, don't forget the video channel. Just little gentle reminders.
And that can all be set up and automated beforehand, so switch it on, tweets get delivered, you don't need to worry about it.
Completely. And also it's like who's following it, let's build this little community. It's things that haven't been done before, so we have to be open to trying new things, and there's not going to be any damage done by doing any of this, and one hopes that we as educators will learn from it and say, well, actually this worked, this didn't work. Were there any differences? How were the pupils when they returned to school? you know, this really can work. And also one of the things, just coming back to with regards to resources, school reports will go out to all pupils at the end of the year. My recommendation would be to have a little section at the end of a school report, again, like a little fact. Don't forget this, you could lose this over the summer.
Right.
This is how you can rectify it.
On.
Yeah. 99% of parents will engage with an you know, report from school.
Yeah.
Most, you know, when you get a report sent home, pupils are always really keen to find out what's been said. So making it part of the report is a really good way of saying, this is how brilliant you've been this year. These are the weaknesses, or these are areas for development. Yeah, let's not say weaknesses, areas for development. This is what you could do. This is what we recommend you. This, we want to help you. So it's kind of like nurturing, giving them an opportunity to improve and raise awareness again.
And in terms of teachers that really are short on time, I know that we're going to be sending out a checklist and some suggestions after this webinar. But any other recommendations?
If you literally cannot think of anything creative or anything different, then you literally can just use your go-to online learning. So you can use your BBC Bite Size, you can use your My Maths. You know, it's that is all possible. So it's not to say that don't use your tried and tested, but if you feel like giving something a go and just breaking the norm a little bit, then
because even a simple quiz.
A simple quiz on
summer theme.
A summer theme. Bring in certain some elements of your curriculum. What happens is, like, I know, like, teachers get so worn down and tired by the end of term. So creativity might not be at the max. But even if we're just sowing the seed now, what you could think about is, I tend to find that I get ideas when I start to switch off, and I think, oh, I could do this, I could do that. So even if this year you go for something really bog standard like a quiz, what you might want to think about is, when you are having that bit of headspace time, what I could do next year. It's just about literally sowing the seed and saying there's an opportunity here.
We've only got a few minutes left, so a couple more questions, Chijo, on this really interesting subject. First one is how can teachers measure whether this has had an impact?
It's going to be over time, to be honest with you. It's every year when we go back in September, different teachers will have different ways of kind of assessing where their pupils are at, and it could simply be in the first, if you know what you've set over the summer as a challenge, then your opening half hour of your first lesson with your class could be questioning them in a slightly different way, and automatically then you'd get some very clear feedback about whether they've remembered that or not.
Right, and even just looking at the engagement over the holiday when they get back, to see whether they were partaking in the quizzes and various other activities.
And you can build in reward schemes. We don't want to implement things that cost schools money, but there are kind of, with regards to point systems, house points, and then there are financial rewards in some schools for those, and it builds to a £5 voucher which can be used in a number of different outlets. So it will depend on money, but it doesn't have to be, it shouldn't necessarily be any financial reward. It's whether it's a certificate, whether it's recognition, whether it's something extra from the canteen. We've just implemented for our revision sessions, if you attend 10 revision sessions, you get your kind of your cookie card stamps, and then you go to the canteen and get free cookies.
Right.
So it is. It's a bit exactly. So you could argue that you implement a system like that, so it doesn't have to cost money.
I mean, Joe, I was just astonished by those numbers. Maths, you can lose 2.6 months worth, and all it takes is 12 hours over that 6-week holiday to mitigate against that.
Yeah.
If you were going to just highlight a couple of really important points for those listeners to take away with them, what would they be?
I think we're at a sort of like an early stage of this, and I think stage one is that the sharing the facts has got to be the first stage. So making sure that every teacher, pupil and parent is aware of the impact of summer learning loss. What is that?
So it's the education.
Education needs to, and it needs to start like now. So let's start sowing the seed now. We're in middle of May, beginning of May, so that by the time that you might roll out a little summer learning loss challenge in July, it's not a surprise. The kind of the buy-in has happened.
So you need to get that buy-in earlier.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, don't just do it on the last week of term when literally everyone is just like, enough now.
Summertime.
Yeah, we're done. We're absolutely done. Let's start introducing it now. Let's include it within the end of year report. A separate little box at the end of a report. A meeting scheduled for a department meeting scheduled for end of June time, so the resources can be sent out. A little bit of kind of like awareness raising, bit of planning, put it out there, see what happens. It's not, it doesn't have to be too complicated.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
And everything you do this year will be
absolutely
added value for next year too. And the most important thing is this absolutely should not impact your summer holiday.
No, absolutely not. No way.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to Joe and for all of those that attended. We will be sharing this both via email and also on the Apogo website, and we'll be looking to follow this up with another webinar shortly.
Yeah, well, thank you. If you've got any questions that you'd like to share with us, please do. You can always email them over or put them in now. I think it's quite a new area to raise, and so it will be interesting to see how this kind of develops over time.
Yeah, and feedback as well. We'll stay online for the next 5 to 10 minutes if there are any questions or feedback. So we do look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola.